and I think we got Todd Bensman by phone. You did right. I think it's America's Covert Border War. It has to do with the jihad that is being waged in this country. And before I get your take on, there's been a lot of discussion about sleeper cells and what what is a ticking time bomb, right? Potentially going on when you see who's been entering this country, I would argue, invading. But they have the numbers from the various fiscal years of how many people who are on FBI's terror watch list, not the MAGA grandmas, the actual terror watch list, and how many of them have been breaching the southern border. In fiscal year 2017, it was 2. 2018, it was 6. 2019, it was 0. 2020, it was 3. 21, it was 15. 2022, it was 98. And this year, so far, 151. Todd Bensman, if you could sort of walk us through why we've seen such a ridiculous skyrocket in those cases of people on the terrorist watch list crossing into the border, but more importantly, I think if anyone could answer the question about the likelihood of these, so-called sleeper cells or just the probability of people who have these terrorist ties turning violent, do you think that actually is a serious, credible threat?
Well, I'll tell you what I just told Congress last month when I testified about terrorist travel over the southern border to the Judiciary Subcommittee. This period that we're in of a collapsing mass migration crisis has taken as a casualty counterterrorism programs that had largely kept that threat in check, that had kept Americans safe. I wrote a book about this. I have the distinction, I guess, of having written the only book that's expressly only about terrorist infiltration over the southern border. It's called America's Covert Border War. And I document in that book what these programs are and how they've kept us safe so far. And as I testified to Congress last month, those programs are now null and void. They have been completely corrupted and degraded to the point that they are no longer viable. And so my assessment was that we are at a very high risk of terror attack from the southern border for a lot of reasons, besides the fact that our counterterrorism protections are degraded and non-working at this point. They're basically sidelined. That has to do with the fact that more than 45% of everybody reaching that southern border is from 160 countries other than Mexico and Central America, including every nation of the Middle East, and that we are letting them in unvetted. We can't vet them at all. And so we're just processing them in along with Central Americans and everybody else. And that is a recipe for terror attack in the United States. It just is. It is what it is. Where Ben is right now, crossing into Tijuana, there is a Muslim-only migrant shelter right there within sight of the wall.
If you could just pick up where you left off talking about how there are specific centers set up for Muslim migrants and we're not vetting them and we're just letting them in the country with some Pokemon Go app.
Yeah, well, it's true. In Tijuana, right where Ben is crossing and Oscar are working, is a Muslim migrant shelter, the first one in Mexico. It's been in operation for about a year and a half. I visited it in November, did a big video report and print report on that center asking national security questions about it. I saw Chechens there, Somalis, people from all the stands, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, everybody from the Middle East is going through there, Afghanistan, etc. And the question to be asked there was, what sort of U.S. intelligence and law enforcement interest has there been in that? center, and this was in November, so things could have changed since then. It had been in operation for 7 or 8 months, and the director of the center said nobody had ever once reached out to her. She had material on everybody who's ever been at that center. She'd be happy to hand it over to anybody who asked. She doesn't want terrorists coming through or using her facility. But nobody either on the Mexican side or the American side had ever reached out to her, and that their job was to mainly help these Muslim migrants from all over the Middle East cross using the CBP-1 interface to be brought in over the bridges. But a lot of them just chose not to use that, and they would just use it as a way station to hire smugglers and go over illegally and run. So I hope that I think Ben is going to do something with that pretty soon with that Muslim Migrant Center. But the point is that we have the highest number of terrorists on the FBI watch list, suspected terrorists, crossing the American border. You went through the numbers there. Those are astounding numbers. Those are absolutely stunning. And if I have a minute, I would say one more thing to keep your eye on. Hezbollah operatives inside the United States, Unit 910, Google my name, Todd Bensman, and Unit 910, and you'll see all of my reports on that. They are clandestine agents in American cities, armed to the teeth with target lists, already drawn up, waiting for orders from Tehran. If things really blow on the northern border in Israel and we help, watch out for Unit 910.